Oh, hey everyone. Now, I think I may have found my new king for a red dot and magnifier combo. Today we'll be taking a look at the Primary Arms SLx 1X MicroPrism with the ACSS Cyclops Gen 2 reticle, and then we'll add on their brand new SLx 3X magnifier. Now, I'm as surprised as you that this prism really is my top choice, even over a red dot. Let me show you why. So first off, I want to talk about the red dot and why it's kind of king in the CQB and the close range environments, and then what you trade off when you move into an LPVO. And Hop did a badass chart that we showed off in our Helion 503 video that really explained it well. And in that chart, we showed the differences between speed and accuracy. And on the scale of optics, we have our red dot all the way on the left, where it maximizes speed for the sake of accuracy. So then the red dot causes a synergy with like a lightweight, shorter rifle as you're maximizing speed with speed. On our chart, the next step up is to add a magnifier to give some additional accuracy with a very slight impact to speed. Then with a smart ACSS reticle like we showed on the Helion 503G, you could use the magnifier to easily reach out to 400 to 500 yards. If you just absolutely had to. It may not be pretty, but you could do it. Next on our chart, we have our LPVOs that give up speed as a trade-off for additional accuracy and functionality. And you'll constantly see this in really dumb builds that you have like an 11.5 super lightweight rifle with an LPVO on it. And it's just really not synergistic, as the rifle is doing one thing with maximizing speed, and then the optic is doing something else that's taking away speed for accuracy. So it just doesn't balance well. And then we end our chart with the slowest and the most accurate with our high-end magnification scopes. So with all that, you may be wondering, why the hell am I telling you all this if we're reviewing a microprism? Well, first, we need a small understanding of what exactly a prism is and who generally use them, and what Primary Arms did to make something really bonkers here. First, a red dot usually uses a single reflective lens with an eyepiece to illuminate the dot or reticle. So then the reticle is illuminated in the housing, and then it bounces off that angled glass and then goes right into your eye. This gives you unlimited eye relief and a huge field of view, as the actual image isn't really modified. But the actual reticle is just kind of superimposed on the image, and people with astigmatisms sometimes see those reticles as like a tear or a starburst, so they have to use some of these prism optics in order to see the reticle clearly. So then what does a prism do differently that works for people with eye issues? Well, for starters, a prism is far more like a scope. No, I'll even take that back. I'll say it fundamentally is a scope, just a much smaller scope. The light from outside is bounced around across multiple surfaces, and this can allow multiple fixed magnification levels. And the actual reticle is then etched into the glass of the scope. So people with astigmatisms don't usually see that smear effect, because the actual image that you're seeing out of the eyepiece and the reticle generally line up a little better optically. Something like that anyway. I don't make scopes, so you're getting the backyard basics. But one of the cons of a prism is that it's a scope. You lose out on that infinite eye relief of a red dot. And a prism is often heavier and bulky, so it's more likely to snag on things, which then takes away from that synergistic effect that we mentioned earlier about maximizing speed, particularly if that prism has eye relief issues and it's heavy. Due to this, most folks only use prisms if they had to. Like if they had an astigmatism, they would really need to use a prism optic to see it clearly, because the red dot was then always a little bit better, even with the loss of that etched reticle. But then came along Primary Arms to do something really innovative. What if there was a microprism that had bonkers eye relief and it was as light as a red dot? Suddenly you have something that may be better than a red dot. And with that etched reticle, losing out on battery power is not that big of an issue. We'll tell you what though, let's find out if that's the case. Today we're going to be tearing into that Primary Arms 1X MicroPrism, and I'll start out by showing you what all comes in the box. Then we'll go over some of the details and features of this reticle they included, And yes, it's primary arms, so you know they did a badass reticle. I'll then show you all the bonkers mounting options, and then we'll go test it out at the range. I think I have like 1,000 or so rounds through this optic, so I should be able to give you some pretty good input. And then we'll look at the new primary arms 3x magnifier and toss that on this setup. And see just how a magnifier performs with a prism optic. All right, though, I think you're gonna be pretty impressed by this, so let's start off by seeing what all comes with the primary arms 1x MicroPrism. Okay, so here's our box for our MicroPrism. What else is on here? We got, oh, good Lord, that's a lot of mounting options. All right, what else on here? There's all our specifications in case we wanna know what all this was. Let's get everything out of the box. Oh, there's some instructions. What's this? That's the instructions for the actual reticle, okay, and then this is the instructions for the actual optic here. Let's see what all is in here. Okay, here's the features, how to get a clear reticle picture, illumination, zeroing. Yeah, you guys know how to do all this. Oh, there's all those mounting options. If you want to see how to put all this together, it shows you how to do it. And look at all these different options, like 1.1, 1.845, 1.97. Goodness, there's a lot of different options. That's awesome. All right, what else is in here? All right, how to mount it. Yeah, torque it down. Okay, got it. How to get to the battery compartment. We don't need that. Here's all of our specifications if you want those. Oh, and this also has auto live, so it turns off all the illumination when you're not using it, which is great. Lens care, yeah, we don't need that. Okay, then what's in this manual? I'm assuming this has everything to do with the reticle. Okay, so there's our Cyclops Gen 2. Here's what shows all the bullet drops for all the different calibers, even different barrel lengths. So just refer to this if you need that. The actual shotgun use patterns, that's awesome. Here's all of our range estimation. I'll show you how to do all that. That's easy. What's this? Why use ACSS? Well, it's because it's awesome. And there's that Raptor M2 reticle that I absolutely love. All right, what else in here? That's it. Okay, let's get everything out. What do we got here? A cleaning cloth. Yeah, we have a million of those. All right, what's this one? Here's a tool. Wait, I think there's another tool connected in here. So this must be to adjust everything. And then this is to actually install everything. We need to torque it all down to the actual mounts and everything. I like that. It's nice and robust. Okay, what's here? So here's our first, oh, there's a bunch of different size screws. So all the screws you need for all the different mount options are included. What's this one? Okay, so here's one of the cantilever mounts that we saw. I'm assuming we're going to have a whole bunch of these. So then here's the next one. Yep, there's another cantilever mount. So this is pretty amazing that you get all these different mount options. Yep, here's another one. So all those different sizes all come with it. You don't have to buy anything separate. Yeah, I really like that. Okay, here's our actual optic. Let's get this out of here. All right, wow, so look at it. It's tiny. This is a prism that is just tiny. It has this little bikini cover. Oh, it has this cool primary arms written on the front. Anything on the back? Nope, the back's just completely smooth. All right, let's check this thing out. So there it is on that medium mount. It just looks really nice. And you can see how you change out the mount with those 3 screws on the bottom, the Picatinny mounting option. There we go. It looks like the front of it actually has a spot where you can put those anti-reflection filters on, so we'll install that later too. Looking at the side, we see the windage and elevation. I like that they're big like this. Like I can use regular tools on this. I don't have those little tiny adjustments. So we'll have to see how those sound in just a second. And then here's our diopter. Oh, it's a little stiff. Okay, I did get this later. Just know you really got to hammer on it. And here's our illumination settings. Looks like there's about 12 or 13 settings plus like 1 or 2 night vision settings. This thing definitely gets pretty bright. If you can see here, kind of cycle through them all. It goes pretty dim all the way up to pretty ridiculously bright. I tried this out on some pretty bright days and had no problem seeing it. And then, oh, I managed to skip the highest one. But yeah, you get the idea. And one thing too is it doesn't have the 0 stop in between, so you would think you have to go all the way back to 0, but you really don't because it has the auto live, so it turns itself off. Let's try out these clicks on this elevation though, and let's hear this. Oh yeah, that sounds good. Oh, of course the AC turned on too. Listen to that. Nice and crisp and loud. Yeah, that's super nice. I really like that. All right, so let's see if we can actually see through this. Okay, wow, that's amazing. So I can see the reticle through my camera already. I'm really impressed by that. All right, so now that we've seen everything that comes with our 1x MicroPrism, let's dig a little bit further into that actual reticle. Now I'll tell you one of the coolest things that I didn't really think I would care about when I first heard about it, but then suddenly did when I saw it. That etched reticle. Well, the etched reticle means you always have a reticle, battery or not. You can always see your target as long as you have a good contrast. But if there isn't enough light, that's when you can turn on the side illumination. Here we have multiple illumination settings for varying brightness for a clear dot that you can see during the day, like this very bright day, and multiple night vision settings for night use. And I'll show you more of this footage when we actually go out to the range, but I didn't find I was any faster with the illumination on or off if I was using it during the daytime. That etched reticle really is easy to see, but there are some tricks to using that reticle, so let me show you. For starters, the reticle on the 1X Prism uses a chevron designator with an outer circle ring. I found this was incredibly useful in engaging close-range targets, as the center circle allowed for extremely fast target acquisition. As we saw in the manual, there's also different charts for different ballistics that give you information on how to use this as a mini ACSS reticle. With the top tip of the chevron, I set my 0 to 50 yards on my 11.5-inch pistol, and then the lower segment of the chevron is then the 300-yard marker, and the lowest portion of the chevron is then 350 yards. But what if you didn't know the proper range to the target? Like, where would you know to put that target on the chevron tip? Well, the 1X Prism has that covered also. Included in the lower portion of the reticle is a horizontal and vertical ranging ladder. The reticle vertical ranging is based on a 5-foot 10-inch male. You must place the bottom of the target on the lower ranging marker and range upward. Using this, you can then identify the target distance and make the appropriate adjustments on the chevron. If the height of the target was obscured, you could then use the horizontal ranging segment that measures out an 18-inch center mass. Using this, you could range a target from measuring shoulder to shoulder if you didn't have a full view of the target height. So then you have a quick engagement reticle that can be used up close, plus a precision chevron that can be used like an ACSS reticle. And if you're lost, just use that horizontal and vertical ranging. All right, so you've seen everything it comes with, and we've gone over the reticle. Let's go put it all together and go mount it all up. As the instructions showed earlier, there are multiple different ride heights that the 1X Prism can be used at. From 1.1 on a low mount PCC to all these crazy spaces in between, all the way up to 2.075. And you may notice that like crane neck of the sight. And remember though, this is a tiny, tiny scope, so eye relief is still a thing. So with this mount, it can be mounted more forward to add other items and still retain some of that eye relief. And I really like that 1.93 height. Like, I find that to be really natural, and that 2-inch, for some reason, like the 2-inch and the 2.2 always seems like it's way, way too high. So let's set ours up for the 1.93. Actually, I guess it's 1.97, close enough. Following our instructions, we set up our 1X Prism using the straight spacer and the cantilever medium mount. I screwed the optic into the cantilever mount first, and then used the long screws to connect the base, medium spacer, and cantilever mount all together. And just like that, we have our 1X MicroPrism set up to a healthy 1.97 height. And just like that, it's really easy to set up to whatever height you wanted to, like if you want to change it across platforms. But I really found that I like the 1.97, and I pretty much kept that across that for whatever I've been using. All right, though, so let's go mount it up. But before we do that, let's weigh it and see how it compares to some of our other optics. And remember, one of the main cons we noted for a prism against a red dot is the extra weight of the prism. So let's compare this against my favorite, the Holosun 503G with the 1.93 ScalarWorks mount on it. Testing to see what our weight is, it's about 4.86 ounces. All right, so now we'll test out our Primary Arms 1X MicroPrism. If I could find a way to put this on here we go. And we got about, what, 8.39. So the Prism does have some extra weight, but it's only like 4 ounces, so I'm not freaking out. All right, let's go mount it up. So then, nothing special here, just place the optic as far forward as you can while still getting a good optical picture. And you're all set, right? No, it's a scope, remember? So that means you need to set your diopter on your scope to achieve a clear image with your eye. Failing to do this critical step may result in some very, very frustrating usage. So don't forget to adjust the diopter until you have a super, super crisp reticle. All right, though, before we go to the range, let's do a quick side-by-side comparison of the eye relief of a red dot to this MicroPrism. Putting the 1x prism side by side to our Holosun 503G, I'm blown away at the eye relief of the 1x MicroPrism. While it doesn't have infinite eye relief, you could almost say it does, as if you have the rifle anywhere near you at all, it's easy to make out the reticle in the center. Moving to our 503G as a comparison, you can just see how similar this 1x prism compares to a red dot. And one of the main things that surprised me was that the reticle was bigger and cleaner in the prism than the red dot, since I could dial in the diopter to match my eye specifically. When I was out at the range, I actually asked a few people to try it out, and they couldn't tell it was a MicroPrism and not a red dot unless I told them. One other cool thing this thing can do too is you can actually add one of those anti-reflection filters to the front too. I teased this one a little bit, but Primary Arms also sells this little anti-reflection filter that can be screwed into the front of the 1x MicroPrism to reduce the reflection off the front of the lenses. Here you can see the difference without the anti-reflection filter and how it bounces light off the front of the lens. And then we'll add the anti-reflection filter so you can see the difference it makes with reflecting light from the front of the lens. Looking through the actual optic, that honeycomb on the front of the anti-reflection filter doesn't mess up the image at all or occlude what you're seeing. So it's an option if you want to use one of those anti-reflection filters. But tell you what, let's go to the range. Now, I ended up with a pretty insane round count on this optic, and it was continually my go-to for the optic I was used to test various products. The fast target acquisition circle, along with that etched reticle and incredible eye relief, made it an absolute top pick for an optic that outclasses even a red dot. I found myself able to rapidly engage target and have an absolute blast doing it. The 1x MicroPrism's entire setup makes those close engagements fast, snappy, and easy to pull off. But then what about taking it out to further range? I did spend some time taking the optic out much further to our 200 and 300 yard ranges and found these to be incredibly easy to engage with just this reticle and a 1x prism. But do you know what would make it even easier? A magnifier. So let's take a look at the new Primary Arms SLx 3x magnifier and see if we can add this to our prism setup. Here's the housing for the new Primary Arms 3x magnifier. The housing looks like it's well designed. It can definitely take a beating. The magnification also has an elevation and windage adjustment. But this is different than your red dot or your MicroPrism. Don't adjust those turrets in order to move your zero around. What those are for, those windage and elevation adjustments, are to actually move the reticle around and center it within the magnifier, not to move the zero. On the rear of the magnifier is the diopter. This is used to set a clear image with the red dot. Again, something worth saying once is worth saying twice. Make sure to set that diopter so you can get a clear image, as everybody's eye is just a little bit different. You'll also need to order the flip to side mount if you don't have a mounting option already picked out. The magnifier can then be mounted either in a left or right hand orientation, and I like how it locks in place. Then I can just reach up, press the push button, and then just flip it out of the way. The flip to side mount from Primary Arms also include two different sets of screws and a spacer for absolute co-witness and 1/3 co-witness height optics. And I suppose you can just use the spacer that's included with it to get the magnifier height up to 1.72 to try to line up with our 1.97 MicroPrism height. But it definitely looks a bit wonky, and you gotta mess with it so you don't get this split image. So I have a creative solution to get all this lined up that I'll show you in just a second. First though, I'm a big fan of the Holosun HM3X magnifier, so let's see how these two compare in terms of weight. Okay, so first off we have our Holosun HM3X at about 10.65 ounces, and then we'll switch out to the Primary Arms 3X full size. Let me see if I can put this on here, and that's about 12.58 ounces. So really it's kind of a wash, as they're both really within a few ounces of each other. But then if we compare the eye relief of both magnifiers, we see the HM3X has an eye relief of 2.75 inches, and the new Primary Arms 3X full size has a 2.8. So it's super similar. All right, so now that we've seen both magnifiers, we see that the Primary Arms 3X is very similar to the HM3X. So let's go and mount it all up. But let's not forget that our magnifier is at 1.72 and our optic's 1.97, so let's do some dumb. I took out the magnifier spacer and used our unity mount to get the proper height we need to get it all lined up. I mounted up the magnifier with a small gap to get the appropriate eye relief on the 1x when the magnifier is either up or down. And remember though, adjust the diopter on the prism so that it's clear through the magnifier. But let's answer that question then. Can you use a magnifier with a prism? And you absolutely can. By setting the diopter on the prism to match the magnifier, you get an amazing setup where the magnifier allows you to get much better target identification and significantly increases your accuracy as the center chevron becomes much easier to see. Alright, so we unpacked a whole lot of information today, so let's go over our pros, cons, and if I recommend it. And for my first pro, this prism isn't just for people with an astigmatism. The Primary Arms 1x MicroPrism solves all of the problems of a prism with an eye relief that is comparable to a red dot, all in a super lightweight and micro package. The etched reticle makes it a great option to use for home defense when paired with a quality flashlight. And there's no turning it on or having to worry about batteries ever, and that's absolutely huge. Alright then, the next pro are those mounts. Now, not all of you may love the look of those mounts, but I think everyone can appreciate the sheer number of options Primary Arms included in this optic. It really doesn't matter what height you want to achieve, they included the mount for you to not only do it, but to also to change it to a different height at any time you want. And I really like this because I can play with the different mount heights and see which ones I like and see which ones work in different scenarios without having to buy a ton of different height mounts just to try it out. Alright then, the next pro is definitely that reticle. With the quick engagement circle and center chevron, you have the tools to engage close targets easily, making this an incredible option for a lighter weight system focusing on speed. The horizontal and vertical ranging ladders allow you to measure distance quickly and easily, and then use the chevron as an ACSS reticle to make adjustments to engage targets at range. Adding the magnifier, the user's accuracy increases even further with a significant boost to target identification at range. And I was initially worried as to how well that magnifier was going to perform, like it didn't work so well, until I actually had the MicroPrism diopter dialed in properly. So let's do some cons though, and my first con is actually that mount profile on the actual MicroPrism. I believe this is the ACOG mini mount profile, correct me in the comments, but that makes finding other mounts a bit challenging, particularly if you wanted aftermarket 1.93 height mounts. And not being able to toss this on like a ScalaWorks or Unity mount is a bit of a bummer. So the next con then is the magnifier mount heights. Having so many options on the Prism in terms of height really highlights the lack of height options on the 3x magnifier. And while I found a solution, getting a magnifier to 1.93 costs you at least $100 for one of those Unity risers, if you can find one. Or you can pay a ton more to get straight up gouged and buy this one. I would have liked to see some higher magnification mounts with materials that are sourced on planet Earth. So then you gotta wonder if I recommend it. And I totally do. The Primary Arms SLx 1x Prism with the Cyclops Gen 2 reticle really surprised me in an unexpected way. I never thought I would find myself preferring a prism over a red dot. But whenever I went out or had some shooting to do, I would find myself pulling the 1x off whatever I shot last just to take with me. And that's saying a lot, as I like it better than my favorite Holosun 503G. And I not only recommend it, but I actually say this 1x MicroPrism is my absolute top pick in terms of those close range dots. Oh yeah, I'll put a solid and I'll put a link to the MicroPrism and the magnifier down in the description if you want to buy any of these products. But hopefully my review of the Primary Arms SLx 1X MicroPrism with the Cyclops Gen 2 reticle was useful in your purchasing decisions. I want to say thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. It's amazing what you do to support us. And I want to say thanks to everybody that likes, comments, and subscribes. Comment down below what you think about a prism compared to a red dot. All right, everyone, Walsh out. Could you just imagine if I didn't mention that LPVO and red dot chart as Hop's idea? Our favorite internet numbered seaman White Knight would be very upset. God forbid the dude takes the time to learn the difference between plagiarism and paraphrasing.